Yes, guys, welcome back to another episode of Lilywhite Lounge. This one's a bit different. We've got a special guest, a person who we have many interesting debate on Twitter with, or X, who's a big supporter of us. And I'm so excited to have him on. So, Simon, you want to introduce yourself quickly and let us know a bit about you?
I'm Simon. I'm from Stockholm, Sweden. Obviously, I'm a TV producer. I'm a director. I'm a writer, and I'm a huge Spurs fan. That's basically all you need to know about me. And I'm a huge fan of this account. I've been begging for more of this kind of stuff, factual, balanced, analytical content about Spurs. So I'm a huge fan of everyone here. On this account or platform or team or group. What do you guys call it? Gang?
I guess a team. I guess
a gang. Yeah.
The Lilywhite gang.
Quickly before we get into the usual stuff, I just want to know what made you start supporting Spurs. I've not actually asked you that before.
I mean, it's a slow. I'm a little bit older than you guys. Believe it or not, so I've been a huge soccer fan or football fan for a long time. Grew up a Roma fan, basically, a huge Serie A fan. But then in the late 90s, beginning of the 2000s, Premier League started to kind of take a huge chunk of the media space here in Sweden. And a lot of Swedes started to support Arsenal because we had Ljungberg in that invincible team. And contrarian as I am, I looked at who would be the funniest team to support, kind of just as a joke, because I already had my team in Serie A. So I started supporting Spurs. Very like an avid fan, and mostly to annoy my friends. But then slowly, it's one of those things. You don't choose your club support chooses you. So that's basically how I got into it, and then I got more and more into it, and with Bale and with Modric and with that era. So that's basically how it is. It's not an exciting story, but that's my story.
It's similar to me with my whole circle's Arsenal. I'm one of the only Spurs fans, so I get you struggle there.
You want to be special. You want to be the outsider,
exactly.
The independent thinker.
Let me just quickly introduce. Obviously, we've got the usual other guys who I'm very pleased to have as well. We've got Travis, and we've got Ollie as well joining us today. So excited to get your thoughts as per usual. But yeah, if we touch on obviously the United game, we went to Old Trafford, and I think there was some concerns, especially from my part, about this game, especially when I found out Kulusevski was out. I thought our midfield was going to lack a little bit of balance. Obviously, Romero and Van der Ven have just come back from injury, and we've later found out there was illness amongst the group as well. So a lot of added issues. But I think we performed with the players out there pretty well. I think arguably could have got all 3 points, but came away with a point. And yeah, I think it's another sort of sign that under Ange we've come a long way, playing a very kind of backup-ish team, and managing to kind of dominate the game at such a huge club and stadium. I think is just testament to what Ange has done. But yeah, I wanted to start with a performance that kind of really put a marker down for me. I think there's been a lot of discourse around this guy this season, and kind of rival fans not rating him as highly as us Spurs fans do, which I still find crazy. But that's Romero. I think he was excellent this game. Ollie, what were your thoughts on Romero against United?
Yeah, I think he's been superb all season, as he was last season as well. And I think what was interesting in this game, obviously, we didn't really expect him to be back so soon. So it was a great surprise to see him back in that starting 11, obviously wearing the armband as well. And I think as captain, I think he really thrives on that sort of extra responsibility. I think he loves to be that guy that controls the defence. Everyone looks to him. I think he really assumes that role naturally, and I think he really thrives in that role. And maybe with the added confidence that he has wearing a captain's armband, he takes those extra risks, which just separates him from the other defenders at the club and many defenders in the league, especially in possession. We saw for the Bentancur goal an amazing line-breaking pass, sort of out of nowhere, into the feet of Skip, who then finds Werner and turn gets the assist for Bentancur. So he's just got on the ball, especially. So much ability that the others at the club and in the league just don't have, and he's to have him back. You really realise what the drop off when he's back in the team, and seeing that performance against United, makes you realise actually what we were missing for the last couple of months.
Yeah, I completely mirror all those words. Simon, what do you think it is about Romero specifically that separates him, especially I think in possession, I think he was very good defensively this game. But I think what stood out to me in this particular fixture was in possession stuff. Simon, what is it about him on the ball that separates him, do you think?
I think it's his bravery, mainly. He not only sees the pass, but he also has the bravery to hold on the ball and release it at the right moment. And so I don't really, and I feel like the whole team senses that. And so they're more comfortable in making their runs or in not worrying about having to, change up into transition defense. And also, even if it's Van der Ven or could have been Davis, not this week, but what I'm saying is no matter who plays beside him, and has risen this, said this many times before, that defender also feels more comfortable in knowing that we have someone to start up what we're supposed to do tactically, playing out from the back. So that's mainly what it does on. And I also feel like what Ole brought up, I think a lot of people that don't see the value in Romero don't watch us enough, so they just go by those highlighted mistakes he makes defensively when he goes too hard or whatever. But they don't appreciate what they don't see, that only we see because we watch every minute or every game, sometimes multiple times, is what he brings on the ball.
I think it's easy sometimes to pick out moments with him where his style kind of comes unstuck, but the qualities that we get from him, he couldn't cut out those moments. There's always going to be moments where you make that wrong decision when you step up that aggressively, and that's not kind of his fault all the times. That might be someone's pulled off him the other way. He's gone short and they flicked around the corner, and that can just happen at times. And I think it's very easy for centre-backs sometimes to be passive and be less kind of in the spotlight, and therefore look like they're not making as many errors. But centre-backs are always going to make errors, whether that's not pressing enough or getting caught being too aggressive at times.
But also you can feel like a lot of media or a lot of rivals, they have their bias or narrative or their agenda where they want to point out faults with Ange's system or playing this brave, or if it's a rival, it's just banter. But so it's so easy to kind of pick those moments out and highlight them and make them everything he is instead of just a small part of what he is.
And I think it's I was sorry. Just add to that. I just think also if no one else can notice what he's doing, that's sort of good for us. And Ange clearly knows how good of a player he is. I can tell when Ange speaks about him how much he rates him, and his teammates as well have raved about him, including the likes of Messi. So I don't think that's sort of Twitter chat, and I reckon people within the game know how good he is. It's more the kind of outward looking fan. I mean, the outward fans who obviously don't.
Yeah, but and you notice when he creeps into our fan base, when he becomes a liability. That's the word. And I'm like, oh, let's talk about that word. Because in my mind, it's the opposite of a liability.
I think liability is an interesting word. And Travis, I want to get your thoughts on that. I think for me, a liability is the opposite of someone who takes responsibility, will never hide, will always be brave enough to draw a press and play at the right moment. And at times, if someone's under pressure or getting that kind of media attention, they might look to kind of treat the ball like a bomb at times, or not play those risky passes. And I think he's the complete opposite of that. What are your thoughts on that, Travis?
Yeah, exactly that. And that's what I was going to say. It's about percentages at the end of the day. It's about how much he gives you compared to how much he hinders you. And he gives far more than he hinders us. Even he makes 2 to 3 errors every 10 games, say. The things he's offering game by game consistently, through build up, off the ball, his aggression when pushing up onto an attacker, if he steps in front of that attacker and wins us possession and puts us on the front foot straight away, we can then get into a consistent cycle of creating chances. He does that 2 to 3 times a game. He might make a mistake and get bypassed once or twice every few games. So it's about what he offers you in comparison to how often his mistakes can hinder you. And I think he just offers far more than he makes mistakes. He does far more progressive actions and far more good for the team in general, and takes far more responsibility than he does shy away, make an error, cede possession in dangerous areas. It benefits the team more so. It just benefits the team drastically having him in, because he's willing to make those steps to
Travis, KP, and when you talk about liability, isn't it almost the opposite? Like, if you talk about the person that takes risk as a liability under Ange, that doesn't sound right to me. To me, it's almost the opposite. If someone doesn't take risks when you
exactly
play, well, that's the liability.
Exactly
That's how Ange would definitely see it.
That's how he sees it.
And I think also, just as a more technical point of view, like the way we play, we want to sustain attacks in the opposition half. That's kind of the aim of the game, is to have as much pressure on the opposition back line as possible. And when we are trying to sustain these attacks, and which every team does, we turn over possession, we lose the ball. Who's always most often there to step in and kind of prevent those counterattacks against us and to restart the attacks? It's Romero. He steps in front of the attackers numerous times a game, and those things can go unnoticed, but they're what turns pressure into goals. It's those constant waves of attacks after attack, and Romero's so vital for that.
Quickly,
go on.
What I'd add to that on that point is, once he does win it back, the speed at which he plays the ball and the pace at which the ball is played, he zips it into midfielders or he zips it into the receiver, which it continues that cycle and gets us on the front foot quickly, which is quite a small detail, but it really puts us on the front foot as soon as possible.
And I also feel like he plays the people in this team, and he's a bright example. Bentancur is also a bright example. They play their game in their tempo.
Yeah.
And in basketball, you talk about that. People that play they don't let anyone rush them. So it doesn't matter if someone's pressuring Werner. He's not gonna rush his action. He's not gonna not flick that ball and then just slowly walk to this other side. And that's kind of the best example of the confidence he gets. When you see someone that comfortable in this system, being this brave, is when they don't rush what they want to do. They don't play the ball too hard. They have the right weight of pass.
And I think one note of that is that's so vital, playing the game at his own speed. But I think that's another facet of that, which is so important, is that he understands tempo. He understands when it's important to speed it up and when it's important to slow down. Because if I look at someone else on our team who I think has his uses, is Emerson. He plays the game at his own speed, but he doesn't understand when understands to speed up the tempo, and Romero understands that so perfectly, which can help us sort of launch attacks. Let's move on, because I mean we've spoke a lot on Romero, because I think there's another two pairing in this game who once again have shone brilliantly, and I mean we've been so starved of a pair of good fullbacks for years and years, and I think we finally got ourselves two who are there for hopefully the long term, but have differing qualities, but both of them just such good players. Ollie, what were your thoughts about our fullbacks in this game, Porro and Udogie?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in love with these guys. I think they're amazing. They just bring me so much
Look
joy.
at all that leaning in. He's so in love.
No, but you know what I mean. It's just like just to watch these two young guys. It's just a joy. And like you said, they bring such different things, and I think that's what makes, as a duo, that's what makes them so strong. Is how they complement each other. I think Udogie is probably the better defender with someone running towards him, but we've seen this season Porro making huge strides defensively, more on his instincts. I think he's blocked so many shots and crosses, and he's just he's defending on instinct now, and that's great. And his positioning's improved a lot defensively as well. Udogie, a really powerful runner, great dribbler, and then Porro's got the nuanced passing, the disguise, the incredible technique. We saw in this game, especially set pieces as well from Porro. Which is if you can add that consistently, that's a huge benefit to the team. So what I like most is how they differ from each other. I think if they're the same player, Spurs wouldn't be as good of a team. And so it's just been a real revelation. This season from last.
And I think with our kind of missing players, especially like sort of Maddison and Bissouma and Bentancur throughout the season, I think a lot of responsibility has been handed to Porro in build-up phases, and he's got that creative passing that he at times I think he forces it at some stages where he's so eager to play that final pass that he can rush it at times, which is natural, and I think Ange will look to kind of alter that at times to kind of give us more control, but the upside there is so big because his vision, but it's also mainly his execution of these passes is outrageous at times. I think they've been kind of debated throughout the season on maybe the best pairing in the league. Travis, what are your thoughts on the pairing, and how good do you think they are, and do you think they are the best pairing in the league at the moment?
Put me under it there, haven't you?
I can't think of a pair who currently comes close.
On form, I can't think of many, and as it's sort of exactly what Ollie said. It's the difference between them, and they complement each other so well. And it does sort of remind me of the Trent and Robertson when they were at their peak. Trent was the more technical one, who was a bit suspect defensively and was more of the passer. He would play the crosses in more so. He would be the distributor. And Robertson would just be a pure engine. And he'd just be running and bombing up and down. He'd be making recovery runs. And it is exactly like that, in my opinion. Porro, we rely on him a lot more in build-up, a lot more to create in the final third, through his on-ball creativity and his whipped crosses and his intelligent passing, his vision and things like that. And Udogie, we rely on his pure match intelligence and just power. And his ability, I mean, his technical ability shouldn't go undoubted either. It's quite incredible. But it's that paired with his physical ability that it's just sensational, and you can see it in the runs they make as well. Porro might sort of hang back to try and get a ball in, and Udogie will just burst forward, either with the ball at his feet or without it, and it creates so much space for others.
Yeah,
and talking about Udogie quickly, sorry, and to this system, the way you want to play, or both of them, but Udogie especially, out of possession, he offers you so much. This him much more than Porro. He is so aggressive in the press, but also really intelligent with his pressing as well. He, I don't sound like that old guy that's sort of crying when he's like he wins the ball back so much, but he does. Like he's the amount of high turnovers is incredible, and so many times this season he's been the catalyst of a chance just through his work rate, pushing up high, winning the ball back, and then passing it off inside in field. So out of possession, he's been a monster. And one more thing on Porro quickly, this season especially, his positional intelligence is so impressive. Especially you see it, you really notice it when you got people like Sarr in the team and Kulusevski ahead of him, or actually even with Johnson. He just knows exactly how to be. He comes inside at the right time. He pushes forward at the right time. He drops back at the right time. Like Travis said, an amazing passer, range of passing as well. And when he just takes that sort of step back.
People had question marks around their ability to play. With Udoga, I think the question marks were more about his ability to play inverted. He had the technical ability, the maturity, the characteristics to be able to be functional inside, which I think he's proven himself to be very adept to do. He's very coachable. But at his age, what really speaks to me is his athletic ability and his discipline. And I know that sounds counterintuitive because I think a lot of people have, or at least some fans, some fans have brought up his yellow cards and tried to make it out as if he has discipline problems, and they do this with Bissouma too, but in my mind, that's how we have to defend. I mean, pressing is how we defend. And being able to calibrate that early in a project, I feel is pretty normal, something you should expect. But when you look at Porro, what people were questioning was his ability to defend. And I remember writing this very early when he was kind of being dragged for his weak performances at right back. Like, to me, looking at him when we wanted to buy him, he never had, because one thing I feel with right backs or with fullbacks is if they have the physical ability to be able to defend. And to me, he's got everything. He's got the athleticism. Like he's fast, he's strong, he can defend, but his awareness wasn't there. And so I remember that quote when he said, "Send me into prison and I will end up being the head of the gang or own the prison." And that's the mentality both these guys have went into the season with. Like, the way they've picked up what the perceived weak and strengthened themselves in the perceived weaknesses they had. Like, Porro's ability to learn how to be aware is what blows my mind. And this kind of goes to something I wanted to ask you guys about, which has a little bit more to do with our system. I feel like after this game, I got not a lot of comments, but a couple of comments saying he was a defensive liability again because Rashford had that space where he could counterattack. And to me, this goes more to the fact that the amount of space he has to cover, especially when he has to be more of a creative force going forward without Madison and without Bissouma, without Son. We have something there which might be something we have to look at to improve, but that's not on him.
No,
like
so
his
what
job is to bomb forward.
Exactly, and we've got a video literally coming out this week on Thursday about that exact thing. So the system, every system in football has its weaknesses, right?
And maybe you should explain what rest defense is, because
So I'll touch on that quickly. So every system, of course, has its weaknesses, and I think it's been clear over this kind of half a season or so that our main weakness and where we can see chances is in transition in the wide flanks, because obviously our fullbacks are very narrow but also very high. They receive the ball at times in number 10 positions, and if you just imagine how say they receive it in that number 10 position, which is, in the final third or just outside the final third, and then the ball turns over, they have to make that lung busting run all the way back to fullback, not only to get there, but then to get there and defend that, maybe be ran at by a winger or follow a runner or whatever it is. And then maybe if we win the ball back, they have to get back to that position in possession. So that position is so demanding physically. And Porro, that space being open for Rashford is nothing to do with Porro. That's the system.
It would be on Porro if we had another coach who said, your job is to stop Rashford. Like if we had a coach who changes his tactics depending on who we play, that's another thing. But he doesn't. So he still wants Porro to be Porro, and he still wants us to dictate the game. So that he's not going to adopt too much. He might tell Skip or whoever to help Porro out, but it's not on Porro that he does what the coach wants him to do, which is to bomb forward.
Our rest defense is sort of what your defensive shape looks like when you're attacking. Our rest defense is often a 2-3, but at times it's even a 2-2, because a fullback might launch into the final third to kind of make a run or whatever, and Ange lets them be free with that. And if you can imagine having just two players in your back line in your rest defense, there's a lot of space to cover across the width of the pitch, but also the length of the pitch. And that's why our centre backs are so vital, in the fact that they can defend those wide channels to delay kind of attackers and wait for more bodies to come back. Sarr also massively helps with this because he's got crazy engine and he can run up and down and up and down. So yeah, it's a system issue, and that was at times the issue against United. I think in the first half, I know a lot of people have said we've dominated that first half, but I think that's what United wanted, to hit us on the break. They scored twice. It's easy to say we dominated the game when they sort of let us have possession. I think it was a pretty balanced half in all aspects, and that's I think where we're going to concede most chances until maybe Ange feels that there's certain games where we have to tweak it. I think currently he's setting up the foundations of the side, and I don't think he wants to kind of get in the player's head that, we're preparing for this game, so we're going to alter the system and sort of think about what they're doing.
And it goes to something Travis said, which is about risk and percentages of risk. And Ange knows. So he's just saying, yeah, we might concede that chances over there, but it's not going to change. It's not going to change how we play, because the risk of us scoring with poor bombing forward is also high.
Exactly.
And also that's also where we have to be really aggressive, good with the press. Like that's how we stop the counter when and if we can, by stopping it in their half and winning the ball back.
And that's the aim. The aim is to not even have to face those transitions. The aim is to win it back immediately. And at times you're gonna get played through, and then it looks horrible because it's like, oh, there's 4-on-2 here. But I think there's a lot of times where we've prevented that situation by winning the ball high up, and that's the kind of aim. I just wanted to touch on Bentancur now, because obviously he got his goal, but he also, I thought, brought such a sense of calm to the team. I thought he was smooth in kind of all aspects of play. I thought he popped up in a range of areas, and I wasn't really sure who was. I know Skip out of possession was playing as a sort of second striker in the press. But I didn't really know exactly what role he was playing. And Ollie, I wanted to just come to you and see kind of what role did you see from him, and what role do you think we'll see from him going forward, or what suits him best?
Well, against United, I read it personally. I agree with you that Skip was on the left 8, and therefore the one pushing up at possession. And I read it as Højbjerg as a 6 and Bentancur as the right-sided 8. I actually think I prefer Bentancur as the 6, just because I think he's, like you say, he's so calm, both on the ball, also receiving the ball. Like Basuma has that ability to turn out of a tight space and make the right pass. So I think I prefer him in the 6. And, once we get people like Sarr back from AFCON, and once Basuma's back from AFCON, and even if someone like Gallagher comes in this January window, I think we probably will see Bentancur at 6 long term. But it was good to see him in this role, and it didn't really change to the player that he is. What I love about Bentancur is just, like you say, that sense of calm he brings. He's so unflappable on the ball, and like Romero, he's one of the few players in the squad really that can slow the game down when it needs to be slowed down, and play at the pace he wants to play at. And what's so great about him is his variety in passing, his disguise in his passing as well. We saw in this game, we have done so many times before, just like he just like digs that pass out, that sort of through ball between the centre back and the fullback into the channel, which is so effective. Again, in this game, I think there's one ball into Richarlison and that nearly came off into a sort of half chance. And it's that positivity that I really like from him. He's so proactive, always looking forward much more than the likes of Skip and Højbjerg. He's always sort of wants to turn out, play that ball forwards off into the channel. And with both feet as well. So he's just technically, he's on such a high level, it just elevates the rest of the midfield whenever he's playing.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely a gift and a curse in terms of sometimes he can be too direct. In terms of, I think, as a number 6, I think at times Andrew will probably want him to be a little bit less direct, just because you want to establish that control possession in those first phases, just to make sure you're able to progress into the second, third before you kind of turn it over. But I think his ability and his technical ability, coupled with his physical abilities, because he can cover ground like almost to the level of Sarr. But yeah, he's an unbelievable footballer, and I think we haven't even seen the best of him yet. I think now he's got kind of a run of games and he's getting back to fitness. We're going to see like a elite level player, and I wouldn't use that word like on anyone. I think he's really up there. Travis, what were your kind of thoughts on him? And I guess like where do you see him fitting for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I've got a thread coming out about Sarr next week, and it's very interesting because I think he can actually do the job that Sarr does perfectly, better than anyone else in the side can replicate it. As you said, the legs he's got, but there's the one thing he offers that Sarr doesn't, and obviously there's things that Sarr can do that he can't. There is very few players in the side that can receive the ball in all areas as comfortably as he can. I was talking to Reed about this earlier. It's one of the members of Lilywhite Lab, and he put that graphic together. There's his ability to, as you said, slow the tempo down, read the game, know when to play it forward at certain times, know when to recycle possession, know which areas to take up, and when to support certain teammates. So his relationship at the weekend with Højbjerg I thought was crucial, because Højbjerg, that was probably his best game of the season, in my opinion. And I think it was down to Bentancur dropping in a lot to support him and sort of just have that link-up play with each other. And it was especially crucial because we had Skip sort of vacant in possession, I'd say. And he was just sort of hovering and making off-ball runs to drag United's midfielders away and things like that. And it was really crucial that we had that reliable presence in midfield to control the game for us and also progress play forwards, because Højbjerg and Skip, I think Højbjerg maybe can to an extent, but not consistently. They don't have the ability to dictate play and play those line-breaking passes forward and quickly turn defence to attack, especially the way Bentancur can. I think that is why he could work as a 6, and he will definitely work as a 6. I think Ange actually sees him like that. The way the players we're being linked with and things like that, it seems it's becoming more apparent that he is the 6 for the side going forwards. I think it's just so happened that because of injuries and different circumstances, he hasn't played there.
This was actually be interesting to hear from you guys, because I think this is a big topic among fans. What is our perfect midfield balance? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
I have three kind of iterations of it, and I've been thinking about this. So I'd have.
Look at how excited he got!
Oh no, because I have a thing now where people always want to have like, this should be the line. This should be this is our best lineup, and I don't think
exists.
I think it's a squad game, and I think
depends on the opponent.
Exactly, and I think in big games where we're going to be pressed very aggressively and high, I'd actually have Bissouma, Sarr, and Maddison. That would be my midfield 3 in that kind of circumstance.
Why? Just quick.
Okay, so just quickly, Bissouma's the most press-resistant player at the club. I don't think anyone comes close to him in terms of escaping pressure in tight areas. The kind of just ability to take the ball in any scenario and come out of it. Sarr, those games often can be transitional, very kind of punch for punch, and the amount of ground that will need to be covered, especially by the way we play. I think he's a shoo-in for the side in those games. And then Maddison, obviously, you need Maddison on the pitch. I think Maddison's our best creator, and whatever. Then I'd have against sort of middling, mid-block teams, kind of your Brightons, your Aston Villas, those kind of level teams. I'd have Bentancur, Bissouma, and Maddison. Whether that's Bentancur in the 6 or Bissouma in the 6, I'd probably opt for Bentancur in the 6, and I think I want to see more of Bissouma in the further forward role. I think his driving runs can be kind of line breaking rather than his passing, but I think he can. We've seen him at times, even from the 6, kind of weave his way into the box and kind of win free kicks or kind of pass it off to whoever. And then against low blocks, this is a kind of more controversial one, but I think at times I want to see Bentancur as the 6 and Kulusevski and Maddison as double 8s. I think that is a pairing that can break down any block.
That's frightening.
Would be a great watch, and that would be very circumstantial. But those are that kind of the trios I came up with in my head in different games.
I want to ask a question here.
Oh, it's up. Gone. It's up.
It's Andrew.
Yeah, it's me. Hi, I'm producer Andrew. No, so before Bentancur's second injury a month ago, Andrew was in a press conference frothing at the mouth for his plans about Bissouma and Bentancur midfield. And I'm curious, what could those plans have possibly been? Because he seemed so disappointed that it didn't happen.
This is why I asked the question, because in my mind, when he said that, and I love that you brought that up, that's when because he said, I had plans for Bentancur and Bissouma. And I'm wondering, just thinking about this philosophy, and Travis, I know you have thoughts on this. I wonder, because he likes players to be interchangeable, I feel like Bissouma and Bentancur have the ability to be interchangeable in that 6-8 role, in build up and in bombing forward, because they're similar in that way. Like they're both box to box mids who are press resistant enough to be able to play a 6. I wonder if he doesn't see his ultimate 6 with varieties, basically, being Maddison, Bissouma, and Bentancur. And that's just based on that answer to that question.
Travis, why don't you go touch on that?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it, because I think the relationship Bissouma and Bentancur could have will actually be quite similar to what we saw at the weekend with Højbjerg and Bentancur, just to an elevated level. In that, and it depends on the opponent, but Bentancur would drop deeper, sort of alongside Højbjerg and link up with him, and it would drag United's midfielders forward, and they didn't really know what to do. And then Skip would sort of be hovering behind him between the lines, and almost free in a way. But because it was Skip, we couldn't exploit that. So there was a massive gap between United's midfield, because you had Skip on one end, sort of hovering around the defence, and then you had Bissouma, Bentancur and Højbjerg linking up with each other. And I think if you trade out Maddison for Skip, if you trade out Skip for Maddison, and you can, and those two have the ability, Bissouma and Bentancur have the ability to evade the press from the midfield and find Maddison. The Maddison's got all this space from the.
I mean, if you have Maddison in there, you know when he goes deep to help build up.
Exactly.
I mean, even he can interchange and be press resistant.
Exactly.
And
they've
Bissouma
got the ability.
and Bentancur are technical enough to play that 10 role. And that's why I think his perfect team is when there's no positions. Everyone can play everywhere.
And I think
that's fluidity.
That's one thing I wanted to touch on with Ange himself. He's been a huge speaker on not having these regimented positions as such, and letting players do what players want to do, and obviously within a framework, but letting top players play. And I think that's one thing that's been missing in football in general. But also the likes of Ancelotti have had so much success with, of kind of giving those freedom to the world-class players and letting them do what they need to do. And I think if you can get those players familiar with situations where, okay, maybe Bissouma might be playing the 8, but we're being pressed here, let me come and pick up the ball. And I mean, having those two in a double pivot, like in terms of escaping a press, is just a cheat code. And
KP, this goes even deeper to something you bang on about, which is in the perfect team, there's a base level of technical ability on every player, because the only way that works is if everyone is technical enough to be able to play and athletic enough to be able to play everywhere. And that's why people like Højbjerg doesn't really fit in, because he's got limits to his technical ability and his athleticism.
This is sort of the key principle of positional play, which is like the philosophy that Cruyff and Guardiola and managers like that have, is that it doesn't matter who is in which area, as long as you have a certain amount of players within a certain distance to each other at all times. They can all rotate with one another, as long as, I mean, I think the key principle is there's no more than 3 in a horizontal line and 2 in a vertical line, or vice versa. I always forget which. It doesn't matter who is there, because as Simon said, they're all at the same level of technical ability or around that. And as long as they have that base, they can all interchange, which is maybe why we saw Skip not drop back and interchange with Bentancur and Højbjerg, because he doesn't necessarily have that base level of technical ability that allows him to do so. So he needs to stay in an area and create space for that.
This conversation is like sort of the one gets me so excited for kind of having all our players back, because imagine the kind of football we'd be playing, and the kind of the fast pace, the entertainment value, along with actual results, will be just such a good watch.
And I mean, like KP, you touched on it when we started this stream, which is we've had debates on where we're going with our attacking phase too, and like I think this is exactly why I get excited too, because that's, in my mind, that's what he sees too. Like he's got a plan to update us in every position, to be able to play as close as you can to that kind of football. And that means some players won't be here for the long term. But that, you have to match that with your patience, because there's something that happens when we shoot out and fire the way we've had under Ange, where it's so easy to go ahead of yourself. Like you want it to happen now.
Yeah.
And because I mean, I don't know if we're going to get to that, but when you talk about the attacking phase,
let's go into it now.
Yeah, because I was just going to say, like, we all know that we're not as effective going forward as we can be, And we know that a big part of that is because we lack a couple of profiles when it comes to attacking players. And so, like, my view and my debating point of view when we've talked about this has always been, is this someone's birthday?
I'm getting balloons put on my screen. I didn't do that. So
No,
I thought you were going to start like hovering and lifting.
Yeah, I was like,
so confused by that.
that's a
he
new Apple
really
feature.
likes what I'm saying over
Yeah,
here.
no. If you hold up a peace sign on the Mac,
Oh.
it'll send
That is way too
I don't need
techy.
to do
That is so unnecessary.
Oh, it's
He
not working.
definitely knew that. He definitely knew that.
That's
He,
right.
you know,
Oh my god, that's very
What's on earth? What is the point in that?
That's
But-
I
no,
can't
I don't
get
have
it.
a mic.
But you
I
can
don't
use
have a
those
Mac.
too.
Yeah.
But that's
Go
so
ahead,
useless.
Go ahead, Simon. I'm sorry.
carry
No,
on, carry on.
I was just gonna say, like, so we know that, but we also know that we're not gonna get those players now. And so the way I look at it is that it's not when you build your outfit. I don't know how you guys do it, but I'm very fresh, so I start with my shoes.
Yeah.
And I make sure my shoes are good, and then what kind of like pants do I want with these shoes, and then I build upwards, and that's how I feel. And just doing it, like, I need the place to be able to build out so we can keep possession. Okay, then I need athleticism so we can press, and then I need. So he's quite with building the team, and that's why he talks about needing multiple windows to kind of get there.
Of course.
And I feel like a big focus right now is being a transitional team. Like that's why Werner like fits in because he can help him with that phase of being like really transitional and quick. And then I think that part that we're not seeing, which is basically having 1v1 specialists or the technical ability of some of our players up top to be able to sustain pressure, which is really important when you're going to counter press as well, because you want the team to be compact and players to be close to each other. And one of the ways that you prevent Man United to be able to hurt you with the spaces we talked about in our rest of the defenses, by able to kind of keep pressuring up high, having a lot of players overload in certain areas and be quick and
Also,
close
I guess
to the actions.
limit those turnovers as well. Is
Yeah, and to be able to do that, you need players that the ball sticks to, and we don't have that type of player.
So I want to quickly.
So my thing has been like the intact. So what can we do with the players we do have? And there's a lot of things that I don't see in terms of, or there's a lot of space to grow. I feel in certain types of actions and patterns of play, and I feel like people underlap, and we don't use that enough. And I feel like people don't go to outside. There's stuff we can do even when we don't have Madison and like a creative hub that he still probably can coach into this team, but it takes time to do that too.
And I've never looked at it. I think I've struggled to look at it in that way, and where, okay, I think so. For example, the Werner sign is a prime example of this, right? So he's probably thinking now you say that is okay, we're not at that complete stage yet where we want to be as a complete dream team is what he envisages. But where we're at is probably a more transitional team. And so he's building short-term blocks along with obviously the other long-term blocks to not just build, but also have results while building. So right now we're at sort of phase one. And I think obviously the Werner signing is probably suited to where he's coaching, as in where he sees the team currently, but it's not a long-term kind of, okay, we're only going to have these transitional forwards who need space, because I think it's all clear. It's quite clear to us that we're lacking those profiles, but there's obviously a reason to it. And whenever I question it, I don't think Ange doesn't see it. Of course he sees it. He knows exactly that.
But I get that it's also confusing because sometimes he does, because I think like Gallagher is a long-term thing he sees. Like he's looking, that kind of signing is more like, okay, Højbjerg and maybe Skip won't be here in 2 years. How can I update on them? Like, that's about pressing. That's about being high up with the pitch. More than
box crashing and underlaps and
exactly.
We've seen Sarr do it.
So some signings is for now. Some signings are for then. So I get that. I mean, I find it confusing sometimes, not to make too big a deal of something that's happening now, but I just feel like Werner is about what's the best I can get now, based on what we are right now.
Yeah, and Ollie, just coming to you on Werner, because obviously it was quite a shock deal. Well, for me at least, I didn't think we'd be targeting another sort of player like that. First of all, how do you think he done against United, and sort of what are your kind of predictions for how he does for the rest of the season?
I think it was a performance that we sort of expected. Probably he was never going to come in and sort of like amaze us. Really, we have to bear in mind he's only been here a week or so. But it was. I think there are enough encouraging signs there for me to feel hopeful and at least on board with the signing for the rest of the season. Obviously, got the assist, but a couple of good chances. He still looked like a player who's low in confidence, and that will come gradually. It's not going to happen just with the moves of the club. I think that's going to take time and training to get to know his get to know his teammates, and words to the manager. But I think we saw enough in that game. I'm with you both entirely that we need different profile in attack, and to have another guy who's energetic, quick, but maybe lacking the end product, and is sort of frustrating in a way. And obviously, Werner's, you're talking about the sort of short-term deals, long-term deals. Werner's so obviously the short-term deal, opportunistic, and I think with Son away, he offers enough. And we already spoke a little bit today about out of possession stuff, and I think that's so clearly vital for Postecoglou and how he wants the team to play. And with Werner, you've got a guy who's an elite presser, who's going to give you so many turnovers, and from there chances are created. So he creates chances and scoring opportunities in a different sort of way, and I think he adds value to the team, at least for the short term.
Yeah,
I looked at the stats, and I mean, one of our most effective ways of scoring is the counter press. I mean, I think we're top 2 in all counter stats when it comes to leading to goal, interceptions, stuff like that. While the not the build up, but more possessional play, getting to goal, and XG, we're like 7th or 8th. So it's pretty clear that that's where we're getting our goals, where we're struggling. And I don't think we've had many games with XG over 2. So, and I think like under Conte, we had it over 2 plenty of times. So I feel like, or when I look at the team, when I look at the stats, that's what I'm seeing. And I think Werner, as Ole points out, really helps with creating those kind of goals.
And those attacking patterns take a lot longer to formulate, and even the lack of profiles we have that we've mentioned have obviously probably slowed that as well. And I don't think that's a issue long term, but it's nothing to panic about now. And obviously we've seen the potential of this team, and I think we're all obviously excited again. So we're kind of quick to be like, okay, we need to do this, because we're so not used to having sort of a fun project and an exciting project to follow. So
it's a credit to Ant. He's got himself been running so quickly. You already see the next step. And it's almost like time is not going quick enough for us. We're going quicker than time.
And for me, it's looking at the rest of the league and seeing there's no real elite teams this season, and I think that's probably been a factor. But yeah, let's touch on maybe a couple questions if we've got any in the chat. Andrew, I'll leave you to kind of let me know what questions have come through, if they have been or any.
I have a question, if I can start as a fan.
Yeah.
Hi guys, my name is Simon. Long time listener. I love the pod. I love the count. Ula, I think you're so cute. Travis, you're my favorite. KP, you scare me a little bit. You need to have Andrew on the camera more. I like him a lot. Okay. So this summer, I feel like maybe our starting 11 is basically kind of there. But if there's somewhere we really need to strengthen, what kind of player do we need?
I love how, sorry, you kept the voice throughout the whole time. not just when you were picking us up, but as you asked the question.
I don't know, I went,
I jump in there and I debate if the starting 11 is finished yet. I don't think it is. We've already spoken about the attack just then and how it's not quite functioning yet. I'm intrigued to see in the summer, and this is kind of related to your question, if Kulusevski in midfield is how Ange sees it long term, and if he does, then I think you go for a new starting left winger and a new starting right winger. Ideally, two guys that are one-on-one demons, like maybe Bakayoko on the right wing and then someone like Nusa on the left wing, and then Kulusevski's permanently in midfield. I think that's a bunch of fun. So I think the way Ange sees where Ange sees Kulusevski's position long term, I think has a big say on the priorities this summer window.
I think Kulusevski will be used as a winger, to be honest, purely just because of the options we have in midfield, and I think it will be more situational where we use him in midfield rather than I think his main position will be on the right wing, but if we bring in that starting right winger, or at least a rotational right winger, then we could see him shift central more often. Maybe I think for me, a winger who can play on either side is ideal and what's most needed. Left wing starting priority, but they need to be able to play on the right wing as well.
Yeah, I probably agree, but I also want to quickly mention I think a 9 will be a target as well. I think I'm struggling to see what the long-term plan is for Son in terms of position. And that's fine. I think he can cover both 9 and out wide, but I'm just wary of where he fits. And I'm
struggling with that too because he made him his captain. That's kind of because if he's the captain, he's gonna play. So it becomes he's gonna play central or from the left, basically.
And I think Ange will be of the thought that players that good, they just play and you find them in. So yeah, I'm wary of where he'll fit, but I think Richarlison's profile actually suits Ange perfectly. I just think he lacks a little bit of refinement in front of goal, which I think further down the line to get us to the place we want to be, I feel like he'll be upgraded. But that's
Can I say something that might shock you guys? I actually think now because Ule said something really interesting, I feel. Like maybe he sees him in midfield. I don't think he does because he keeps saying that he likes him on the wing.
Yeah.
But it's becoming clear, Lo Celso. I mean, I love Lo Celso, but not having someone available and close to the quality in some way to Maddison is really hurting us. So we really need a proper backup if Kulusevski isn't thought of as a playing more centrally. That then becomes, to me, we obviously need a left, like a winger who can play both sides, and Son will play. But I'm starting to think that Werner might actually. I mean, he's a short-term solution. That's why they went for him. But because they got such a cheap option on him, because I don't think Gil is here for the long term, and I think Perisic probably isn't here for the long term, and I don't think Solomon is going to play that much. I'm kind of starting to feel now, talking to you guys, that he might actually be someone that they pick up. Not as a starting winger, but as an optional winger, based on the fact that we're going to lose probably 2 other wingers in the squad anyway.
Yeah, well, it's been said in press. I think Ange said it in his press conference after the United fixture, and then I think Werner mentioned it even in his interview for the club that he said, "I wish to be here for many, many more games." I think they both said that, many, many more. So I think the idea is that if he can prove himself, even remotely, even if it's just 5 goals or something like that, chances are he will be snatched up because Postecoglou loves Werner. I think.
Yeah, why even put in the option if it's not a possibility?
Yeah.
Simon, do you see him as a striker?
I think he will.
Me personally, I mean, I think I'm in the minority as seeing him more in the striker role, but that's probably because when I looked at him, and it's not because I think he's a striker, basically like he's a prolific goal scorer, but to me it has to do with how I looked at him at RB, which is when we said in settled defense, like what's his main threat? It's his speed, and he's quicker than than Son. And so having him because I feel like the wingers have more defensive responsibilities, and the striker is basically the one that in transition can hurt you the most, and that's basically how we played at RB when he was at his most effective. He was the one that was the threat that the defenders always had when they pressed us. When they pressed RB, always had to have their eye on. So he was the one that stretched the opposition team. And that's one point. And the other point is I keep hearing Aaron saying he put Son back on the wing because the wingers have more on the ball and he wants Son more on the ball. And so I feel like when he, as a backup striker or through the middle, is where he could probably help us the most. That's a theory I'm working
Just
on.
quickly on Son.
Do I make sense or am I just walking?
Yeah.
You can tell me if I'm...
I agree with you in terms of
because the wingers need to kind of mark someone and they work more in defense, and you want Werner to be free to...
They're gonna be receiving the ball to feet a lot more.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, if it's Werner and Son, I mean, they can switch. So Son is the one that has more defensive duties, and then when they switch it up in game with that positional free thinking that I have.
Yeah, for sure.
I was just going to say on Son quickly. I think I know he's sort of 31, and you wonder exactly where he fits in. He's not quite the left winger you're looking for. Richarlison, so maybe he's a more suited profile at striker as well. But it's so rare to find a guy who outperforms his XG as high as Son does, and for as many years as Son has.
Yeah,
and I think it's so naive to just disregard that level and variety of finishing on such a consistent basis. And so I think he sort of has to be in and around goal in some capacity. That's such a threat when you've got a guy who can finish that well.
Yeah, I just want to quickly. I think we've been going for over an hour now, and we could speak for a lot longer. I just want to see if we have any questions from people watching, and then we'll look to wrap up. Andrew, have you got anything?
Yeah, of course, man. They love us. We have a few things. Two, I think. One of which is talking about possible deputies for Porro and Udogie. That's how you pronounce it. Udogie, because they are obviously crucial parts of the squad, but if you look at their backups, it's Ben Davies, who's great, but I think he doesn't fit the left back position for Postecoglou, and Emerson, who's also great, but I don't. Or for me at least, I like the misfits, but yeah. So any possible deputies?
I would put a couple forward. I think off the top of my head, I think Illing Jr. might potentially be seen as that left back / left winger role. I think he can play in midfield. He can play at left back, and he can play as a left winger. And I think someone
super
like that,
physical.
He's unbelievably physical. I've played against him before, and he's like free.
You played against him.
These guys all. There's so many who grew up around.
He with the name drop.
I'm telling you. And that's
Stop the questions. I want to hear about this career of yours.
No. My career is long finished, man. But he's unbelievable, man. Like tall but quick. But also,
he was Chelsea, right?
Yeah, he was Chelsea all through his youth, and then went to Juventus.
Because we all agree, Sessegnon is not here for.
Exactly, and
like you said about Lo Celso, availability is the best ability, right? So,
but he can play, and I think for a player who's a squad player, it's important for them to be able to play at least two positions, I would say. And I think for him to be able to play on the left wing, if you then have the right back as someone who can maybe cover at right centre back, then it makes you much more flexible. So for that role, I'd look for like Gertruida as an example of that. Trying to think who else. Obviously, who's that?
Sugawara, the guy. Where is he? Yeah, the Japanese.
RZ. Yeah, exactly.
RZ, yeah.
And then
I've got a shout, and I think it works perfectly. Parisi at Fiorentina. I'm not sure if physically he's ready, but he's right-footed left back, and he plays either side for them. I've never played against him, so I can't say anything about that. But I think he works really well because also at Fiorentina he's been tasked with inverting a lot as well, so he's used to that role, and he's really really good. He's more like Porro. His technical ability is really strong, very comfortable in possession on the ball, keeps the ball close to his feet. However, I do have some possible queries about his physicality.
Yeah,
He did
last one to quickly mention is Carl Walker.
Don't steal mine.
Obviously,
Yes.
That Carl Walker Peters.
No.
Carl Walker Peters, homegrown, can cover both sides.
Somebody said
I would say Kelly, and I know that's a boring one because we've been linked, but Kelly can cover both. He's left-footed, can cover LCB and left back, I think. And I mentioned to you Medina, which I thought had been sold, but he's just extended, which I don't think it's a big hindrance.
Yeah.
But that center back, left back kind of option would be mine.
Just quickly. So I said about Sogor on the right. On the left, I think the perfect guy for this system, for the inverted left back role, has just joined Brighton, Valentin Barco. I really wouldn't be surprised if 2-3 years time he's sold for like £80 million. I think he's unbelievable, and he'd be such a good fit. And I'm so sad that we didn't go for him. But yeah,
for sure. Before we wrap up, there's been a couple of questions. I think there's been a lot on the timeline about us potentially how we'd maybe look to play a back three at times. I don't want to discuss this today. First of all, I don't think that's a realistic possibility yet. But we've got a video coming out on Thursday that is pretty much going to cover that and sort of the concerns around that and why people might be suggesting it, but also why Ange might feel against it. So I'm not going to answer that in this because you should just watch that video. It's gonna cover that.
You're just too traumatized from Mourinho and Conte, bro. You understand?
Yeah.
You're the one that sounds offended because your favourite manager got sacked today.
And Simon, you're with me on this, right?
Yeah, I love Jose.
Thank you.
I don't hate that he was sacked, but I think Jose is overhated and underanalyzed. I said it today.
Yeah, I agree.
But it was time.
Okay, that's probably not a good way to end it because I don't want Mourinho.
Oh, it's perfect. People are
leave my man alone.
But yeah,
let's ball for life.
Let's wrap up there. So, Simon, where can everyone follow you? Because we want to plug your stuff, obviously.
You can follow me on at Simon Yemane. Yemane is spelled Yemane. Or just write bad takes into the search tape. You will find me.
Yeah, after me. Yeah.
And obviously, guys, follow us at Lilywhite Lab on Twitter, as I'm sure you probably do. And yeah, we'll look forward to bringing you more stuff. Obviously, we've got a couple of threads and a video coming this week. And we'll look to do more of these. Simon, we'd love to have you back on at some point. So
I'd love to.
This was fantastic.
This was really great.
Thanks so much for coming, and we'll see you guys soon.
All right. I think we're good. Yes.